Good morning from Democritus. I hope you can all hear me and we can all see me clearly. So today in the lab, we are going to find out, to dig inside a computer. In fact, two computers, because we all work on a computer. We do our work. There's, for example, there's some work, some scientific work I'm doing over here with some graphs and everything. But have you ever wondered what does the computer look like inside? So let's do it. Let's open up the machine. I'll close the program. I'll shut down the computer. There we are, shutting down the computer and the laptop. And now I'm going to turn it over and find out how the computer actually works. What does it look like inside? There you go. Turn it over. I've already removed the screws. So I'm going to take out this cover over here. It needs a little bit of rough treatment sometimes. And there you are. There is the what we call the motherboard. The motherboard is actually a computer board that contains all the auxiliary, supporting electronics. And on top of together with supporting electronics, we have all the main parts of a machine. The main parts of the machine in this case would be on the motherboard. There will be the CPU. I'm going to take it out in a few minutes. Then we have the GPU. CPU is a central processing unit, and the GPU is the graphics processing unit, the memory chips, the Wi-Fi, the hard disk, and of course the battery. So let's take out the battery first to get out of it. There is a battery. You can see that all these batteries are about 19 volts. What is this? I don't know. This one is a laptop. It's 11.1, and they can pull up to about 4 amps of. So it's about 40 watts. Okay, so what are we going to take out first? Let's take out the hard disk. There you go. There's always some protecting and supporting screws. And there you are. I can take it out like that. And there is a hard disk. This one is 160 gigabyte. It's an ordinary hard disk. And this is called SATA. It's a modern type of hard disk with the connections called SATA connections. Anyway, don't worry what SATA means. There's also PATA. In the old hard disks, the difference is that this is a SATA and this is a PATA. So SATA PATA, it's just a different type of hard disk. Let's go a little bit deeper inside. I hope you can see clearly. All right, so now I'm going to remove the fan, because the CPU and the GPU, of course, all the electronics, they produce, because there's electrons flowing, they produce a huge amount, especially the modern machines, they produce a huge amount of energy, of heat, energy in terms of heat. With the result, you need to somehow dissipate the heat. So you dissipate having a fan, and nowadays, in the old times, it was just a simple fan. For example, this is from a desktop, a fan. I'll show you a desktop later. And now, but at the same time, we also have what we call a thermal heat sink, where over here, inside here, there's a liquid. The liquid evaporates and carries energy away from the chip, from the CPU and the GPU. So I'm going to just remove it completely. I hope we'll have enough time to look at everything. And there you are. Did I remove everything? How about this one? And maybe this one a little bit more. And there you are. There is this heat sink. And there's the radiator. There's the heat sink, the radiator. It's already warm, actually, and I only have it on for about a few minutes. And there is the CPU chip, the main central processing unit. Over here, I'm not going to take it out because on these machines, a little bit tricky, but I can show you what they look like. There's, for example, this one here. This is also from a laptop, and you can see all the connections. There are hundreds of connections, and there's the chip. And the chip, this thing, it does all the processing, arithmetic processing, all the different input, outputs, and everything. This is a GPU. Most modern machines have separate GPU, CPU. In the old times, they used to be the same. And over here, we have the memory chip. I'll just take out one. This one here. You can see there's 4 chips, and this one is only 512 megabyte. There are millions of transistors, and the same thing with with a CPU and a GPU, they've got millions and millions of transistors, capacitors, all of everything that is used in an electronic circuit. It's really very, very impressive how they build them. And finally, over here, you have the Wi-Fi chip, and there's the connections for the antenna. The antenna connections, the antenna goes around the monitor, and that's why you can get a good signal. So there's antenna connections, and there's other connections as well. On the other side, I'm not going to take this one out, but on the other side, you have other chips and everything. So there's the basic structure of a laptop. This is, by the way, the sound card, the sound processing unit, and lots of other processing electronics inside. Over here, for example, you have the connection for Ethernet. You can recognize the Ethernet connection over here. You have the graphics connection if you want an external monitor and things like that. Now, this is a laptop, but what does a desktop look like? Okay, let's put this aside a little bit. And I hope I can find a way how to put it together. No, I know how to put it together. Okay, so let's have a look at what a desktop looks like. Here is a desktop, and I've taken out this side, and the desktop it's identical except it's larger box, but really the motherboard is the same. And you can see here, I think you can see it clearly, there's the power supply. The power supply in this case, of course, is the battery in the laptop, but here we have a large power supply. You plug it in from here. There's the plug over here and the switch, and the power supply gives power to the motherboard. There's the motherboard down here, and the big chip. This has got a large chip with a large fan. It's not that large. There's many of them much larger than this, and you have all the power supply on this side. This is the graphics card. Now I've got another one out, but I'm just going to show you quickly. There's a connection for the hard disk. There's a hard disk. The hard disk of the desktop. There's another hard disk over here. This is a bit old. This is only about 80 gigabyte. Is it 80? It says no, 200 gigabyte hard disk. It's a bit old, maybe 10 years old, but you get the idea. It's also a SATA connection, fairly modern connection. There is the DVD drivers. There's a hard disk. Down here is also the PCI, the way that you connect external cards in order for the motherboard to see it. And this is the sound card. There's the processing unit, the GPU is over here. I don't know if you can see, it's a bit dark. I'm sorry, let me bring it a bit closer. There it is, there's a GPU, there's a CPU with a big fan over here. And there's the memory card chips. So now if I move this away and bring this over here, I have an open motherboard, and you can see the motherboard over here. These are the PCI slots. These are the gates for connecting external things. There's an AGP. These are PCIs. Doesn't matter what they mean. There's the CPU unit, the GPU unit, and there's the sound unit. These are different. These are the controller for the PCIs. A very important one is the BIOS. The BIOS chip over here. The BIOS is actually is the very first thing that the computer reads when you switch it on. It's the basic instructions, so it can start reading the rest. So without the BIOS, computer cannot work. All computers also got a little battery. The battery keeps the BIOS working, because the BIOS is a chip that is pre-programmed. So the battery is important, and also keeps the clock going, because without the clock, the BIOS cannot work properly. These are the connections for the hard disk. There's a connection for the floppy disk. The old times there used to be floppies. Maybe nowadays in your computers don't have floppies anymore. They don't even have DVDs. And there's the memory connections. The memory chips, they look like the ones I showed you earlier. And of course, external cards. This is a VGA card for a connection, external monitor connection. This has got its own CPU. Of course, a central processing unit. This is a sound card for 5 speakers. And 1, 2, 3, for 5 speakers. And sound card, again, is a little bit old. But generally, this is what a computer looks like. This is our connections to the human side, to our side. And you have the connection to the external monitor, to the monitor. Then you have serial ports. Nowadays, we don't use serial ports anymore. There's USB. The USB is a big discovery in the last 10 years or so, because they allow the connection of anything, because it's called a universal serial bus. the serial connection is also this. It means that the data comes in series, but because it's universal, and the controllers inside the motherboard allows you to connect nearly everything. So it really is an amazing, a very simple way of connecting things. In the old times, the keyboard had to be connected in the purple plug and the mouse in the green plug, but nowadays we have USB and everything goes in the USB ports. This has got a built-in sound card, that one over there. And what else can I say? This is also a serial port. This is the VGA. Okay, and this is it. This is how the computer looks inside. And I hope you got some information, some knowledge. And every time you open your machine, whether it's a smartphone or whether it's any other computer, then you get some ideas of how these things are built. It's really an amazing magic. It's amazing capabilities that people have been able to build in. There's millions of thousands of components and millions of connections. Each of these cards is actually, some of them are 8 levels that you cannot see over here, and then really millions of connections. And look at it, it's just a magic, it's beautiful. And really it's remarkable what is able to, what humans and engineers and physicists, of course, have been able to do. And without any further ado, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope now you know a little bit more about computers, and I wish you to have a very good school day.